Hello and thank you for listening to the AdvisEdu podcast, episode 9, N4A, NACADA, or both. In today's episode, I talk about my opinions on, for an academic advisor perspective, of what is more helpful for the association for NCAA athletic academic advisors. Should they be in N4A? Should they be in NACADA, or should they be in both? And what we can kind of do together as sort of a partnership moving forward. So just some of my suggestions on that today. And this is going to be for Division I athletic academic advising. And I really just wanted to kind of start with a recap of the N4A National Convention, introduce you to NACADA for some of you that maybe your institutional advisors are in NACADA. That is the National Academic Advising Association, so not NACADA, but actually NACADA. So this is going to be kind of the more well-known traditional academic advising for academic advisors. So we're going to talk about the pros and cons of both maybe, and maybe stereotypes of both from a professional side, and then how can we merge and maybe partner to get the most out of the experience. Spoiler, the answer to the title of today's episode is both, in my opinion. I think that we need to have a little bit of N4A and a little bit of NACADA if we're going to be the traditional academic advisor. So, thank you for listening, and let's get started. So I think a lot of the people listening were at the N4A National Convention because I was able to have a lot of good feedback and conversations with those that listen to the podcast or that read the Voice of the Athletic Academic Advisor report that I sent out right before the convention. I would like to get a sense of what others thought about the N4A National Convention, and great convention with N4A, and I had a great time really connecting with individuals across the country coming together for this. One part of me was for my institution side and my work that I need to do there. The other piece was really for my own podcast and what I want to do with AdvisEdu as a think tank company. And that is on Division I academic policy. So I got a lot out of that, but what I have noticed is N4A, we went through the name change last year or 2 years ago, where we changed as it's still N4A, but now it's National Association of Academic and Student Athlete Development Professionals. And I don't think it's wrong to say that the N4A is shifting towards more of a student athlete development and career center focus. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think it's actually very necessary. So we're not just doing traditional academic advising, so hence the name change. And I do agree that it is needed, and I think we're leading higher education in both of those areas as far as student development and then focusing on education to employment without just the traditional cookie cutter career center on campus. I think we're doing a lot of great programs. The other thing is I think a lot of academic advisors at the smaller institutions do both of those roles. You heard my conversation with Mark Trumbo from Syracuse. He actually started out as an academic advisor and then got into student-athlete development and engagement. And I think that's a common trend moving forward, that maybe people are going to start getting into different areas where you're going to be an academic advisor or development. But I think in the past and still at some of the smaller schools, we're doing both those roles. So with that being said, I think N4A is great for those people because you really get a lot of it. But if you're a traditional academic advisor, such as myself when I was at Indiana State, I won't lie, there wasn't a lot to get out of the N4A National Convention for academic advising, and there still really is not. We don't really focus on what are the hard advising conversations, how do we handle scheduling and practice and travel, how do we focus on not to advise with eligibility versus let's advise based on what they want to do. So I would just like to have more of those hard conversations. And when I bring this up, people talk to me about it, and they have a good point. They say, NCAA regional rules is twice during the summer, so you can go to that, and those academic sessions definitely talk about advising and policy. But what you don't get out of that is necessarily one-on-one. So how do I have these conversations, but be a little more critical, I guess, of the NCAA piece? And I love the NCAA academic policy. I've said that many times. I think it's innovative for higher education. I think higher education is following us. But I think that we need to have the hard conversations with student athletes about academic advising for both what they want to do and for NCAA eligibility, so that we're not majoring in eligibility and we're actually progressing like the rules are meant to be, where we're progressing towards a degree, yes, but it's a degree you want. And I don't think that they're completely different, the student development and advising. I think that is why a lot of people are together doing it. But what I would like to see is more academic advising conversations at N4A. And the problem with that, and a reason why I think it's not, is, and I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but it is a very Division I driven membership with the larger schools that have a lot of people on their staff. And it seems like a lot of those individuals are student athlete development. And that's great. It's a younger generation, my kind of generation, a little bit younger than me probably, professionals that are advancing. And we're seeing a lot more emphasis put on health and well-being and all of those things. But what I'm worried about is the academic advisors and the learning specialists too, that maybe we're not going to have the N4A National Convention as a kind of a ground for us to learn more about our profession. So that may be a little too critical possibly, but like I said, I love what the N4A National Convention is doing with the student athlete development. I just worry that we're not going to get as much out of it if you're just traditional academic advisor. And when you go back to your campuses and you report back to your boss to see if, evaluate the convention, if you're going to keep spending quite a bit of money to go, is it justified? So look at the sessions and what did you learn the most out of? What was most relevant? And I think the sessions were great. There was a lot of practitioner-based research that I think was very crucial. But what I would like to do, and what I've come out of the National Convention the last 2 years thinking about this, so I finally wanted to voice my opinion on it, is I think we need to get the traditional academic advisors kind of partner up with NACADA a little more. And not saying you shouldn't go to N4A National Convention. I think for networking and avoiding burnout and talking with peers in the industry that know student athletes, I think that is crucial. And there's always going to be something there for you at N4A, but I think what we have to do is, in some ways, which I'm going to line out for you today, is join NACADA and take advantage of everything NACADA does. And I think by doing so that there's things of the NACADA that we can actually help bring us athletic academic advisors. We can help enhance NACADA's focus on NCAA academics. And so what I mean by that is, I think from my experiences, my current position and my previous position, other traditional academic advisors on campus would be joining in on NACADA webinars. They're not that they're bad webinars. It's just I think that they could be a little more engaging and dive deeper into especially student athlete conversations. And maybe we can help with that and kind of also explain the purpose behind academic policies. And then that way everyone's more knowledgeable on campus and that we can have greater discussions. So with that being said, I'll introduce a little bit about NACADA. For one, it stands for the National Academic Advising Association, and it was formed in 1979. Now, what's interesting is it's actually headquartered in Manhattan, Kansas, and just recently, and this is another reason why I hope that NACADA and N4A can do some things together, is Dr. Lisa Rubin, who if you're in N4A, you definitely know who she is, and she's leading the way really with doing research in our industry as far as academic advising and student athlete experience. I think her and her colleagues do a great job. She was just appointed to the NCAA advisory board for NACADA, and Dr. Rubin is actually at Kansas State University, and that is in the same location as NACADA. And so I think there's some great things that she's done by looking at some of her publications, where I think what we need to do is try and expand on what Dr. Rubin has been doing, and that is bridging the gap between N4A athletic academic advising and NACADA. And I think it's a great potential opportunity for us to expand our opportunities so that our N4A members that are athletic academic advisors, whether it's all of their job or 50%, 60, 75% of their job, that there's something there where they can capitalize on NACADA, without eliminating their existence in N4A. And I think that's what we can do. And you might recall that some of you may have done the survey that turned out to be published in the NACADA Journal, Volume 37, Issue 1 of 2017, titled "Who Are Athletic Advisors? State of the Profession." And in this, Dr. Rubin really opened my eyes to a little bit about trying to explain to NACADA professionals and others in the industry that read NACADA Journal what we do as athletic academic advisors, and that can kind of help bridge the gap on what the institutional academic advisors do that our athletic counterparts do. And I think one thing that comes up a lot of times in conversation is, are your academic advisors under athletics or are they under academics? And I've been at both. And the majority of my career has been under academics. Right now, my current position at D2 institution, it's under athletics, but that has changed in the last year for our own needs. And I think it's always going to come down to campus needs. And what I think is good, though, is if we can improve the relationship by joining NACADA and N4A members together to advise student athletes and have conversations that maybe on our campuses we can have more dialogue. Maybe we can put academic advisors reporting lines under academics. Maybe we can have a little more trust and integration with our advising staff, because at the end of the day, we're advising the same curriculum as the non-athletes on our campuses, and that academic advisors, whether technology becomes a role in this or not, academic advisors are here to stay, in my opinion, and I think they're crucial for conversations with students and student athletes. So I think if we can integrate more and get them the state of the profession of advising on our campuses to kind of coexist and have good relationships, then we can actually we can make a lot of impact on campus environment and campus culture, and maybe change the stigma that is on some of our campuses of student athletes. Now, in my situation, I still go to the traditional academic advisors staff meetings every week, and I let them know, like, here's what I'm working on. What are you guys working on? We'll update each other on curriculum and give some advice. And I think that the more conversations we have about that, the closer we get. And I think that's something that you could take back that I would recommend for your areas. So a little more about NACADA. From their website, NACADA promotes and supports quality academic advising in institutions of higher education to enhance the educational development of students. NACADA provides a forum for discussion, debate, and the exchange of ideas pertaining to academic advising through numerous activities and publications. NACADA also serves as an advocate for effective academic advising by providing a consulting and speaker service and funding for research related to academic advising. Those alone are things that I think that the N4A should partner more with NACADA on, mainly because there's going to be difficult conversations of how we can kind of combine the policy of NCAA academics and integrate it into the actual advising sessions that go on, so that we're making sure that we're not being criticized for pushing student athletes, steering them into certain majors. And then maybe if we see it as academic advisors where we start seeing students changing their out of one major into the other without really challenging themselves, maybe we can have those conversations on the front end to kind of help have the conversation of say, okay, what do you want to do? Let's find an academic platform for you to reach that goal. And then so that we're not sacrificing academic eligibility for academic attainment of what they want to major in. So I think that's something that is important. Another thing I really like that I learned is the NACADA, their annual convention, and this is something that N4A is actually going to start doing with their region conferences, but each year the NACADA's annual convention actually has a theme. So it's a thematic convention based on something that is important at the time, and all those conversations are really focused on that specific topic. For example, in 2016 they had Advising to Learn. 2015, What Happens in Advising Stays with Students. Adventures in Advising, Explore, Discover, Collaborate, Transform, Advising with Altitude. So we need to just kind of come up with these themes where I think that N4A, it's great that they're going to be doing that with our regions. But what I'd like to do is, we can have NCAA relevant athletic academic topics at these conventions as part of it. And we can also do it with webinars. And so what I'd like to encourage, and I'd love to be a part of this if anyone from NACADA is listening, but I would love to be able to have webinars that are talking about why are these policies set up like this, explain it so that we know exactly what we're advising against. So we're not just advising the curriculum, here you have to take this, but then we can also put our heads together to focus on certain topics that advising can actually help drive policy. Now, what specifically do I mean about that? Well, one example is the biggest thing that we all talk about is time that our student athletes are spending on their sport. And it limits or eliminates certain majors or classes on campus. So what can we do about that problem as far as can we have these conversations where we identify a way where the major on your campus that you want, if you can't do it because your practice is during these times, what can we do to help the student eventually finish with that? So is it, if it's a team sport, is it something where we can do an independent study around that class, or we can try and do a post-bachelor? So basically once they're done with everything else, they go back and finish those. Maybe we can, whatever, I don't know, have a conversation where the academic advisors can talk about it to the NCAA and give a platform for academic policy as well. And what I would like to see done is maybe listen and have a conversation about what I talked about as the academic transparency on the official visit. So it's great that from the survey I sent out and just from talking to everyone that, yes, you're very involved as an athletic academic advisor on the recruiting process when they're on campus. But let's have something out there that says, hey, these are what our students in your sport are majoring in. And then that way, if they ask, mom or dad or the student asks, why none of them are engineering majors, and you can tell them why there's no engineering majors. Maybe it's because none of them are interested in engineering. But one question we might have to ask is, okay, is that off limits because of time? So if we can have these conversations where we're being as transparent as possible, that can really drive change too. But the problem is we don't have a collective voice. And I think with N4A, like I said, it's a great event, great professional membership organization, association. But I think with NACADA being focused on academic advising, they're going to be the biggest ones that can drive policy. Now, that is something that we can totally help them with. And AdvisEdu, my think tank company, I will definitely be reaching out to NACADA to try and see if there's anything I can do to kind of help understand the NCAA rules for the non-traditional athletic academic advisor, the ones that are on campus advising traditional students. Maybe I'd like to see some advisors that have never worked with student athletes come into those roles with welcome arms instead of just kind of having to stay in one segment, because I think that we need to have some of our best academic advisors applying for these positions, not just someone that's always worked with athletes, but someone that can actually advise accurately information and have strong conversations. So there's multiple things I just covered probably too quickly, but basically have one voice where we can actually help drive policy by providing athletic academic information to the NCAA Committee on Academics. And I know the N4A presents to the Committee on Academics, but what I'd like to see is athletic academic advisors that their sole job is advising and working with these policies, that they can be the ones having these conversations, because we can look at the hard conversations, what are the problems, and see if we can come up with any solutions. So that's the second piece of this. Let's identify problems and use our experiences and our voice to try and come up with solutions, mainly about time demands and transparency in the recruiting process. The other part is let's do a partnership to try and enhance the programming of NACADA, because I do think that we do a great job at N4A of having presentations. So let's take the athletic academic advising approach, maybe kick it up a gear and do more webinars that are focused on NCAA academic policy that maybe we don't hear at N4A. Everyone knows the buzzwords of APR, GSR, but what does it mean and why were they put in place? And so if we can have those things, we can kind of backtrack it, reverse engineer how those advising sessions would go with students. My final concern is really about pricing out a lot of the athletic academic advisors, because if there's not going to be specific athletic academic advising sessions, then it's going to be very hard to continually to go, because a lot of times it's around orientation, or it's kind of based around your busy part of your summer if you're an academic advisor, where you might be working with international students coming in. I know I went for orientation for 2 straight weeks, and then it ended, went to N4A, and then came back, and now we're working on international student athletes. So the other part of it, though, is if there's only 1 or 2 of you, then it's pretty expensive to go to. I think the membership rates, I won't say them because I don't have them right in front of me, but I know the membership rate to go to the convention and maintain your status as a member is pretty hefty if you're not getting a lot out of it as far as your main responsibility. The NACADA, it is more affordable. And what I like about NACADA is they're open to doing a lot of webinars. Not that the N4A doesn't or hasn't, but I think NACADA does a lot more training, at least at the campus level, where you'll have those conversations. I don't think they're the most impactful ones, at least not the ones that I've heard, that especially that mention student athletes. But I think that's where we can kind of bring some more content and more explanation, and we can not worry about pricing out members, because we can go more digital and we can have an online community, much like what the N4A is doing with the locker room on our website. It's great, but NACADA, I think that they have a very strong online community as well. And the other thing, though, is we need to come up with a formal partnership, because what I see is from conversations with others and my experiences, a lot of times they're only going to pay for one. So your institution might only pay for an N4A membership, or they might only pay for a NACADA one. And I think if we can come up with a price point that maybe we do some type of programming where if you're an N4A member, you can join NACADA and have at least some of the same capabilities with your membership rate. But if we can come up with a special rate, because it'll benefit both parties, because the N4A will keep their members, which all-time record attendance at N4A, so we're not hurting for numbers, but we can keep that. And then you can also improve NACADA's understanding of NCAA academic rules and just advising strategies, because student athletes put up with a lot of time demands. All of a sudden now a lot of college students are working, so we're dealing with the same problems. It's just some happen to work as student athletes, some happen to work as actual jobs with students. I think it's a mutual beneficial thing. And then also we can bring more experience to that NCAA advisory board, where we kind of have that one voice on athletic academics to present to the NCAA Committee on Academics for potential policy changes, and that maybe we can look at things a little more closely than just an overall N4A, when the clear shift, in my opinion, for N4A is to continue to go down student athlete development. And yes, we're keeping the academic advisor piece in it, but I think that the writing's been on the wall the last couple of years, and I think that it is important to stay in N4A for athletic academic advisors, because similar to Mark Trumbo's case, a lot of people in the industry started as an academic advisor, and now they're doing development. And I think development staffs are going to continually grow because of the importance being put on mental health and wellness and safety, but also with the increased money that it's going to be coming down in the next many years from the academic revenue distribution, I think you'll start seeing more development programming, career center focused programming, which is important, but it's going to pull from athletic academic advising. So I don't want people in N4A to lose that opportunity to get into development, but I also want them to be able to get something out of athletic academic advising. And I think that there's things that we can do in both professional development groups. So what it would look like, not exactly sure, but what I do know is we have a lot of intelligent people in N4A and a lot of great people in NACADA as well that know what they're doing with advising. I consider NACADA as the experts. So I think if we come together, maybe that NCAA advisory board can get with an N4A committee, and we can just kind of bring on academic advising into one locale where we can have the benefit of having both memberships at some special rate, and that we can enhance academic advising for all students, especially our student athletes, and that we can get the best strategies of advising out there. So just something I'd like to see happen. So be sure to visit advisedu.com, advisedu.com, to see everything going on. I've now changed it so that you can see individual episodes with recaps and episode notes for each episode of the podcast. It was Travis Talks Education. I've rebranded it to AdvisEdu Podcast just for simplicity and to kind of rethink everything as far as it being a think tank company. So just kind of with branding. Be sure to rate, review on iTunes. You can listen on SoundCloud or directly through the website. Just go to advisedu.com and hit the podcast, and you can listen to every episode. I will be releasing quite a few here as I go on paternity leave. About to welcome my second son into the world, hopefully in the next week, and excited for all that. But please be sure to follow me on Twitter at Travis Higher Ed. Love to have the conversation, and I'll definitely be reaching out to some of you that are in NACADA, and hopefully Dr. Rubin as well, to see what can we do to bring both of these groups together, and then also see if we have any stats on how many are actually involved in both. And if you have not read the many publications of Dr. Rubin, but who are athletic advisors, state of the profession, just from last year, I think that is very critical, and I know N4A played a huge role, membership of that. So it talks a lot about our profession, so I'd love to get your opinions on that one as well, and I will talk to you on the next episode of the AdvisEdu podcast. Thank you.